Alright, so the duel begins and our boy Yugi goes first. Hey, Crush for the future here. While I was editing this video, I realized I was flip-flopping between calling Atem Yugi, but since they're both technically the same person, just one's modern day, one's from 5,000/3,000 years in the past, so just try to ignore it, okay? He draws, and his opening hand consists of the following cards: Magician's Navigation, Temperance of Prophecy, Spellbook of Secrets, Backup Soldier, Disgraceful Charity, and Countergate. Atem starts by activating Spellbook of Secrets. Due to this card's effect, he can add one Spellbook card from his deck to his hand. He adds Spellbook Organization. Now that the Spellbook card was activated, he normal summons Temperance of Prophecy and immediately tributes her away. This is because of her effect. When a Spellbook card is activated that turn, she can sacrifice herself to special summon a level 6 or higher light or dark spellcaster monster from Yugi's deck straight to his field. Atem, very smartly I might add, decides to special summon Apprentice Illusion Magician straight from his deck. Now because she hits the field, she can now add one Dark Magician from Yugi's deck straight to his hand. This is smart because instead of special summoning Dark Magician to the field, his magical navigation that he has in his hand will now become live when he sets it face down.
Typical strategy.
Atem ends his turn by setting the rest of his hand face down that is not Dark Magician. Now it's Kaiba's first turn. He draws and, speaking of typical, 2 copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon, Dragon Spirit of White, essentially 3 Blue Eyes on turn 1, Fiend Grieving, Back to the Front, and Pot of Greed. What does Pot of Greed do again?
This lets me draw 2 new cards.
Alright, good. Just want to be sure. He gets King of Dragons and Roar the Blue Eyed Dragons. Kaiba then immediately normal summons his King of Dragons. Due to this card's effect, when it is on the field, it is always treated as Lord of Dragons. Additionally, when he is normal summoned, you can discard 1 spell or trap card to add 1 Food of Summoning Dragon, the Melody of Awakening Dragon, or Dragon Revival Raspity from your deck to your hand. Kaiba discards the Roar the Blue-Eyed Dragons to add the Food of Summoning Dragon and immediately activates it. The Food of Summoning Dragon can only be activated if the Lord of Dragons is on the field, but since the King of Dragons is treated as such, this is totally legal. Now Kaiba is allowed to summon 2 dragons from his hand without a sacrifice. He summons one of the copies of Blue Eyes White Dragon, along with Dragon Spirit of White. While Blue Eyes White Dragon has no abilities of its own, Dragon Spirit of White does have a few abilities to itself. Firstly, it is always treated as a Blue Eyes card, and while in the grave or hand, it is treated as a normal monster. It can tribute itself to tag out with the second Blue Eyes in your hand if your opponent controls a monster. And finally, every time that it's summoned, it's able to banish 1 spell or trap on your opponent's field, so in the right deck, this could be abused. Kaiba, of course, activates the effect of Dragon Spirit of White, targeting one of the 5 cards on Yugi's field to banish. He ends up targeting Magician's Navigation, which in response Atem activates. Because of this, he can now special summon the Dark Magician he's had in his hand, along with 1 level 7 or lower spellcaster monster from his deck. He chooses what else but Dark Magician Girl. I will say, Magical Navigation does have a graveyard effect that allows him to negate 1 spell or trap that Kaiba activates as long as he has Dark Magician, but since it's now banished, that ability is no longer available to him. Unsurprised by this, Kaiba then proceeds to activate the next effect of Dragon Spirit of Light. By sacrificing it, he can summon the second Blue Eye that's already in his hand. Kaiba then activates the graveyard effect of Roar the Blue Eyed Dragon. While initially it can summon a Blue Eyes from the deck, banishment, or graveyard, while it is in the grave, this can be banished to perform a fusion summon without polymerization, as long as you utilize a Blue Eyes monster. He then banishes Roar the Blue Eyed Dragons to fusion summon Blue Eyes Twin Burst Dragon. And no, we're talking about this right now. I'm not waiting for the end of the turn. I want you guys to look very closely at Blue Eyes Twin Burst Dragon. More specifically, not its effect, but its summoning condition. It requires 2 Blue Eyes White Dragons to be made, or by sending 2 Blue Eyes on the field to the grave. Now look, it's not a misplay Kaiba summoned this monster, it's how he went about it. He could just set both Blue Eyes from the field to the graveyard right now, and then save Roar the Blue Eyed Dragon in his grave for a later turn if he needs another fusion option. Or better yet, just banish it right now, fuse both Blue Eyes, and keep Spirit Dragon on the field. We pretty much now have the same board how we had before. The difference is now we have 1 extra monster to work with. Atem will most likely still activate Countergate to block 1 attack, most likely Spirit Dragon since it has more attack points, but this really doesn't matter because the big payoff is that Yugi has a lot less life points now, so it will pretty much continue as it normally did before, Except now, by the time we get to the Neo Blue Eyes play, attack 3 times, add Deep Eyes to your hand, and then summon it, Yugi doesn't have enough life points to tank the effect damage that Deep Eyes does upon summon. Which is very ironic, because that's almost the way that Kaiba won during the duel with Yugi in the real world. If Kaiba was just a lot more aggressive, he would have won the duel. 100%. Now you're probably asking yourself, wait a second, why didn't you just use Roar of Blue-Eyed Dragons right now? Well, first of all, we have to discard something else in order to keep that in our hand. We don't want to get rid of Fiend Griefing. We need that to survive Exodia on turn 3. That means the only other option we have is back to the front. But we also need that to survive Exodia later on. But let's say, for example, we did discard back to the front. What would happen? Well, that would mean the only 2 options we have is the third copy of Blue Eyes White Dragon, or Blue Eyes Abyss Dragon, since Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon cannot be summoned. We don't want to get out the third Blue Eyes White Dragon right now. We need her in the deck so we can bait and switch Yugi later for a successor soul play. But Blue Eyes Abyss Dragon can add a polymerization to our hand, as well as add more dragons to our hand at the end of the turn to extend our plays. Now we could get Fusion Substitute if we wanted to, but now the new problem is that Fusion Substitute only works for monsters on the field, not in the hand like the OG polymerization does. Keep in mind, we still need to access Twin Burst, which we need to get over Yugi's Magicians. The point is, this one card could have spun off into a can of worms that could have potentially led to Kaiba's victory, but I'm not going to hold it against him, because he was staring down 5 cards face down. Granted, one of them won't do anything to him at all, it just reorganizes Yugi's deck, but the other 4? Kaiba doesn't know what's down there. That could be a threat. It could be a Mirror Force for all he knew. Which is why I think Kaiba's playing a little cautiously the first turn of the duel. As well as he knows the Pharaoh's playstyle, again, there's just no way he could have known that the cards face down were non-threat to him. Another reason is, well, it's no secret that Yugi and Atem love playing spell cards, and Kaiba knows this for a fact. I'm a little rusty on the whole Yu-Gi-Oh lore, but I think in Battle City, didn't Yugi use a couple of spell cards against Kaiba in the very same turn or something like that? With that in mind, Kaiba's probably thinking, okay, if I leave a spell card in my graveyard, Atem will use it against me. So what if I dump it in my grave, then banish it in the same turn so he can? I mean, he doesn't play Blue Eyes cards, but that's beside the point. But there could be, something like Dragon Master Knight or something like that. Now, believe it or not, there actually was a way for Kaiba to win on turn 4, but that requires so much hindsight, it's ridiculous. Kaiba would have to know exactly what cards Atem was playing, where he put them, and how to counter them. One simple way he could have won was to use Dragon Spirit of White to hit Disgraceful Charity instead, which would prevent the Exodia combo coming up. Or, had Kaiba held on to Roar the Blue Eyes Dragons and discard back to the front, he could have used that to summon Blue Eyes Abyss Dragon, add Poly to his hand, and then fuse Abyss Dragon with Blue Eyes to create Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon instead. But before we start attacking with it, now we tribute away Spirit Dragon in order to summon the second Blue Eyes from our hand. Then we banish Abyss Dragon from our graveyard in order to give all our new dragons 1,000 attack. Now we go on the attack, but we have to attack in this order. Apprentice Illusion Magician first, Dark Magician Girl second, and Dark Magician third. This is because if we attack into the other 2, Apprentice Illusion Magician will increase the stats of them and probably destroy our dragons depending on which one Kaiba goes for, but if we get rid of Dark Magician too soon, then Dark Magician Girl will get stronger. From this onslaught, Atem's life points will end up getting so low that Unstoppable Exodia won't have enough attack points to even beat over King of Dragons at that point. Also, since Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon did battling, it would be able to set one trap from his graveyard back to his field so he can use it later. Now when Atem's turn starts, he only has 3 plays. 1. Set Exodia Piece, Ass. 2. Tribute Exodia Piece, summon Legendary Exodia to draw into more cards. Or 3. Summon Unstoppable Exodia anyway to Zombie Negate, as well as be able to set Obliterate. But instead of attack, it would have to be in defense. Doesn't matter which one, Kaiba's already won. All he has to do now is draw into his card, enter his battle phase, and if Atem did some Unstoppable Exodia, he could try to use Obliterate, but oh no, Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon is fully immune to all traps and their effects. Doesn't matter if Atem summoned an Exodia Piece or an Incarnation of it, all he has to do is beat over it and attack directly with his other monsters, and would win the duel, all thanks to Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon. Which is also ironic, as this almost happened during the penultimate turn of this animation. Regardless, with the battle phase now live, he enters the battle phase and goes for Dark Magician first. However, this is where Atem activates and reveals the final effect of Apprentice Illusion Magician. When a spellcaster monster is attacked, she can send herself to the grave to boost the stats of that monster by 2,000 each. Dark Magician, now stronger, survives the battle, along with Kaiba taking the first damage of the duel. Unfortunately, this is where Kaiba reveals that Twin Burst Dragon cannot be destroyed in battle at all. And even worse, when the monster at the battle is not destroyed, that monster in question is banished. This only works on the offense, by the way, it doesn't work on the defensive. And of course, to add insult to injury, he also reveals Twin Burst, like its name suggests, can attack twice. Twin Burst attacks in a Dark Magician girl, and in the same turn, Yugi takes the second damage of the duel. Kaiba attempts to attack directly with King of Dragons, however, Atem activates Countergate in response to stop the attack and draw a card. He gets Card Destruction. Kaiba ends his turn by setting Fiend Grieving face down. Just as Kaiba ends his turn, Yugi activates the effect of Spellbook Organization. Due to this, he can now rearrange the top 3 cards of his deck in any order he chooses. The first 2 aren't specified at all, but the third one is Painful Choice. The reason that this is unspecified is because after Painful Choice activates, the deck will then be reshuffled. So there's really no way of knowing what these 2 cards are, but for argument's sake, I'm gonna say one of them was the Winged Dragon of Ra and one of his disciples. Why not? He puts Painful Choice on the top, along with Ra and Ra's disciple in an unspecified order. It's back to Atem. He draws Painful Choice and of course activates it. This card has the ban-worthy effect of selecting 5 cards from your deck and showing them to your opponent. Your opponent selects one of those cards to add to your hand, while discarding the rest from your deck to the grave. I've had that for a reason, we'll talk about it in a second. Atem reveals, much to Kaiba's horror, all 5 pieces of Exodia.
What the fuck?
Obviously not wanting to deal with that again, he gives Yugi one of the arms while the rest go to the graveyard. Atem then begins his Exodia combo by activating Backup Soldier. Due to this trap card's effect, if there are 5 or more monsters in your graveyard, you can choose up to 3 normal monsters and add them to your hand. After hitting all the pieces except for Exodia's head, Atem then activates the effect of Card Destruction. Now both players must discard their entire hand, and for every card discarded, they then draw the same amount from their deck. Atem discards 4 of the 5 pieces of Exodia, and in exchange he receives the legendary Exodia Incarnate, Monster Reincarnation, Millennium Punk, and Guardian Slime. Kaiba discards back to the front and receives— Wait a frickin' minute, hold on! Kaiba, why didn't you set back to the front during your last turn? You had an opportunity to do that. You could have, I don't know, revived Dragon Spirit of White with the non-once per turn effect of banishing a spell or trap your opponent controls. Honestly, it doesn't matter which one of them that you hit. Both of them will make a huge dent in Atem's strategy right now. You don't even need hindsight to do this either. This is kind of the thing you want to do. Give your opponent less resources to work with. There's only one answer. The plot. The only reason Kaiba did not play that card was because, come Yugi's next turn, come Card Destruction, Kaiba doesn't draw any new cards. And what card does he draw? Enemy Controller, one of the 2 cards he needs to get around Exodia on the next turn. Without that card, Kaiba will be pretty much forced to switch Twin Burst into defense mode, but this doesn't matter because Yugi can just use the effect of Obliterate to send it back to the extra deck, attack directly for game, and Kaiba loses to Exodia once again. Saying that though, had Kaiba set back to the front face down, he could have hit one of the trap cards and prevented Yugi from doing his entire Exodia combo anyway. So this is not a misplay to you, Kaiba, this is a misplay to you, Exceed Prince. I saw what you did there, you forced Kaiba not to win the duel. He could have possibly won, but you should allow him to. Shame on you. Atem, however, is not done. He then activates the effect of Monster Reincarnation. Through this card's effect, he can discard 1 card and then add 1 monster from his graveyard back to his hand. He discards Guardian Slime to add Exodia the Forbidden One back to his hand. Additionally, he decides not to activate the effect of Guardian Slime that adds a card that mentions Winged Dragon of Ra from his deck to his hand, which is fine because the only one in there is Ancient Chant, but he can't exactly capitalize on this right now, and he's going to have a dead card for about a couple of turns, so... With all 5 pieces of Exodia now in the grave, Atem activates...
Disgraceful charity! What? You know exactly what that means. Every card we discarded this turn will return to our hands. Once that happens, all 5 Exodia cards will be in my hand, and I will automatically win the duel!
And this is now where I have to jump in to say, all that extra comboing was probably pointless. Not that Atem's strategy was wrong. It was fine. He saw Exodia. He wanted to go for it. That's fine. He went for an alternative win condition. That's fine. My issue is that all of this was not necessary. None of it. None of it. And that ties to both these cards right here and what specifically their effects state. Remember Painful Choice? Well, it says, quote, add that card to your hand that the opponent chose and discard the other card. As for Disgraceful Charity, it says, quote, both players add all cards from their graveyards that were discarded by the effect of a spell card activated this turn to their hands. Since the effect of Painful Choice includes the clause discard, wouldn't that technically mean the cards sent to the grave were already discarded? Now, since Painful Choice has been permabanned, it's never come off the ban list, and Disgraceful Charity just does not exist IRL, there's really no way to test this in its official capacity, not counting that one singular that everybody uses. If I'm right, that would mean that later on, when the fused Exodia gets sent to the grave, Atem can hold on to Monster Reincarnation to put it back into his extra deck and then resummon it because, fun fact, he does draw back into Millennium Ankh a little later on in the duel. For just whatever monster ends up in there and needs some kind of defensor with something, like Guardian Slime or something. Saying all that, Kaiba would still counter with Fiend Grieving and reshuffle Yugi's deck, and the new problem is that he probably won't draw into Millennium Ankh now because come card destruction that turn, it'll be a completely new hand. So, ignore everything I just said, I guess. Speaking of, Kaiba, having none of this, activates Fiend Grieving. Because of this, he can now send one Fiend monster from his deck to the grave, and in doing so, he can then shuffle one card in Yugi's graveyard back into his deck. He sends Absolute King Jack to his graveyard, then reshuffles one of the Exodia pieces back into Atem's deck. Disgraceful Charity still resolves, however, but...
You blew it, Pharaoh. No 5-piece combo for you, and now you're stuck with 4 completely useless cards clogging up your hand. That's what I call a brick. He said it! He said it!
Because it was sent to the graveyard, Absolute King Jack's effect activates. If this card is ever sent to the graveyard, you can look at the top 3 cards of your deck, then place them in any order you choose, which is essentially just mimicking Yugi's spellbook play from earlier. The cards Kaiba rearranges are Painful Escape, Enemy Controller, and a Mysterious card. If I had to put a name on it, perhaps Assault Wyvern, I guess? He puts Assault Wyvern 3rd, Enemy Controller 2nd, and Painful Escape on the top. He's not finished countering, however, and now activates the graveyard effect of King Jack. Due to this, he can now activate the top card of his deck, and if it's a trap card, he can set it and activate it this turn.
And as you can see, that just happens to be a trap!
Continuing on, Atem activates Millennium Ankh in his hand. Now by revealing 5 pieces of Exodia to his opponent, he can then special summon the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate from his extra deck. However, he cannot summon any more monsters this turn, and any monsters that are not Millennium or Exodia monsters will be shuffled back into his deck. And finally, after Millennium Ankh successfully activates, it is then shuffled back into his deck. Upon revealing the 4 pieces in his hand, along with the one that Kaiba shuffled into his deck, he is allowed to special summon the Unstoppable Exodia Incarnate. This incarnation of Exodia is completely immune to destruction by your opponent's card effect. Also, when it battles, it gains attack equal to your current life points. It has an Omni-Negate, which can negate the effects of a spell, trap, or effect that activates. And during each player's end phase, it can set one Exodia spell or trap directly from your deck to your field. Now you're probably thinking, wait a second, a monster just gets progressively stronger every time it battles, one that has an Omni-Negate and is completely immune to destruction by card's effects, and can set resources from your deck straight to your field? What's the catch? Well, during each standby phase, you will lose 1,000 life points, which is not optional, meaning if Exodia stays around for too long, you will lose the duel. With Exodia now on his field, Atem enters the battle phase and goes after King of Dragons. Because of this, Exodia gets 7,000 attack points stronger due to its effect. Kaiba, unaware of Exodia's negation, but wanting to reduce the damage as much as possible, activates the effect of Painful Escape. Due to this trap card, he can tribute one monster he controls, and then add to his hand one monster with the same attributes, stats, and type, but a different name. He intends to go for Dictator of Dragons. But of course, Exodia denies this by negating the activation of his trap card.
You little!
Still, since King of Dragons was required to activate the card, he is still set to the graveyard. That means Atem's only option is to attack into Blue Eye's Twin Burst Dragon, but it is not destroyed in the battle, but Kaiba still takes a decent chunk of damage. Kaiba promises Atem he would regret that, but with no more plays, Atem ends his turn. As he does, the final effect of Exodia activates and sets Obliterate from his deck straight to his field.
The last time someone beat me with Exodia was the only time in history it ever happened. And I guarantee you, it's not happening again! Hope you enjoyed seeing that Exodia on your field, Pharaoh. Because by the end of this turn, you'll be waving a tearful goodbye!
Kaiba, a businessman of his word, begins his bait-and-switch combo. First, he draws out Exodia's negation by activating enemy controller and targeting it. Atem, falling for it, activates the effect and negates enemy controller. With Exodia's negation now all used up, he now activates Successor Soul. Due to this card's effect, Kaiba can send an effect monster from his field and one from Yugi's field in order to special summon a Blue Eyes White Dragon from his deck. Because Successor Soul doesn't destroy the monster affected, Exodia's protection doesn't save it. Also, for the sake of my sanity and your sanity, I'm gonna just ignore the fact that the anime version of Enemy Controller requires 1,000 points to use, but it honestly doesn't affect the duel that much. The only thing it would do is deny Kaiba one more fusion on his final turn, and it could very well just be the TCG version anyway and exceed Prince made a mistake. Kaiba attempts to attack directly with Blue Eyes White Dragon, however Atem activates the card Exodia left behind for him, Obliterate. Due to this, he can now send a piece of Exodia from his hand or deck to the grave to bounce one card on the field back to the owner's hand. He sends Right Arm to the grave in order to bounce Blue Eyes back to Kaiba's hand. Annoyed, Kaiba sets it back to the front face down and ends his turn. Now in post-editing, I was always curious, wait a second, what if Kaiba just played these two cards in the reverse order? What would happen? Honestly, not much, because it also depends on what version of enemy controller we're using. If it's the anime version, well, nothing really changes, because Kaiba can't destroy Exodia and he can't tribute it away. However, if it's the TCG version, Kaiba can tribute his own dragon to take control of Exodia, but then Yugi will just use the effect of Obliterate to bounce it back to the extra deck. Now at the start of Yugi's turn, he'll draw into his trap card, set it, and he could send a piece of Exodia, most likely the head, to inflict more damage, and then he'd have to pass. Now, depending on whether or not Kaiba draws another monster, he can try to attack into Exodia, but then Yugi will just use the effect of Spellbinding Circle he just played to stop that attack. And from that point on, we move entirely into speculation territory. Speaking of which, there's a play that Atem could have done as well. How about not use Exodia's negation effect, and instead use Obliterate to bounce Twin Burst back to the extra deck? Without that monster, Kaiba has nothing. He has a dead hand. He will be forced to end his turn and just watch as Exodia takes away the rest of his life points with 13,000 damage. It's then back to Atem, and he draws Spellbinding Circle. He summons a piece of Exodia and then trims it away to summon the legendary Exodia Incarnate from his hand. This incarnation of Exodia has better protection than the other one because it's completely unaffected by all card effects. Also, it gains 1,000 attack for each piece of Exodia in the graveyard. However, once per turn during your end phase, one piece of Exodia is added from your graveyard to your hand, which does weaken it. But when this card gets destroyed and sent to the grave, you can reveal any number of Exodia pieces in your hand, and then draw one card for each. Atem attempts to use Exodia to launch direct attack on Kaiba, however Kaiba responds by finally activating back to the front in order to revive a monster from his graveyard, but it has to be in defense position. He revives Dragon Spirit of Light. Just like before, Dragon Spirit of Light's effect activates, which banishes a spell or trap on Yugi's field. Kaiba goes for Obliterate, but before that, Yugi uses its effect just before it gets banished to try and bounce Spirit Dragon back to the hand. However, Kaiba in response activates its quick effect to tribute itself to summon the Blue Eyes in its hand. Due to the chain link mechanic in Yu-Gi-Oh!, all these effects resolve in reverse. First, Dragon Spirit of White gets trimmed away to summon the Blue Eyes in hand. Exodia also gets 1,000 attack points stronger due to Obliterate being activated, as it attempts to bounce Spear Dragon to the hand, but since it is gone, the effect fizzles. Finally, the effect of Spear Dragon resolves and banishes Obliterate from the game. Atem, not wanting to crash a 3,000 attack Exodia into a 3,000 attack Blue Eyes White Dragon, stops his attack and ends his turn by setting Spellbinding Circle face down. The final effect of Legendary Exodia activates, adding a piece of Exodia from his graveyard to his hand, which also weakens it by 1,000. Back to Kaiba's turn, he draws probably one of the most broken draw cards in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Aside from Card of Sanctity, Card of Demise. This lets him draw until he has 5 cards in his hand. Since his hand is empty, he gets the full benefit from it. However, within 5 turns, he has to discard his entire hand. Don't worry, the duel will be over within 4 turns, so he doesn't have to pay that price. Kaiba obtains Crystal Dragon, Ultimate Fusion, Dominus Impulse, Called by the Grave, and Nutrient Z. Kaiba surprises Yugi by tributing his blue eyes away to summon Crystal Dragon. Then, after fully explaining what Crystal Dragon does, which is when it battles, you can add a level 8 dragon to your hand, Yugi activates Spellbinding Circle to not only stop it from attacking, but also weaken it. Unfazed, Kaiba then activates the effect of Ultimate Fusion. This allows him to fusion summon a Blue Eyes fusion monster by shuffling the appropriate materials from his hand, field, or graveyard back into his deck. Also, for each material used on the field, 1 card on your opponent's field is destroyed. Kaiba returns all 3 Blue Eyes from his graveyard to deck in order to fusion summon Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. Neo Ultimate Dragon's effect differs from the real world version, whereas you can only reveal the original Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, and when you do, this card can attack 3 times. But if it does, it's destroyed at the end of the battle phase. And a little bit of shenanigans happen here. Despite Ultimate Fusion specifically stating Blue Eyes on the field need to be used to destroy cards, for some reason it still destroys Yugi's trap card. Of course, Exodia is immune to it and the trap card isn't, but the fact still remains is that the fusion card itself specifically specifies the materials must be on the field to blow up any card.
Looks like the rules just got screwed.
With his dragons now free and ready to attack, Kaiba starts to go for game. First, he reveals the original Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, so the Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon can attack up to 3 times this turn. Of course, when it does this, it's destroyed at the end of the battle phase. He uses Crystal Dragon to attack into Exodia. It's destroyed, and Yugi takes 500 damage. Because of this, Crystal Dragon then adds Deep Eyes White Dragon to his hand. However, since Legendary Exodia was destroyed, its effect activates. Because it was sent to the graveyard by battle, Yugi can now reveal every Exodia piece in his hand and draw 1 card for each. He reveals 3 and then draws 3 new cards. He gets Raw Disciple, Dark Factory of Mass Production, and Graceful Charity. Now before Kaiba can attack directly with Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, Yugi special summons Guardian Slime from his hand. This is possible because whenever he takes damage for any reason, he can then special summon Guardian Slime to his field. And like mentioned before, when it's sent to the grave, you can add a card that mentions Winged Dragon of Ra to your hand. However, it also has a battle effect, is that when it's attacked into, its defense will increase by the attacking monster, meaning essentially nothing can beat over it once per turn. Of course, unaware of this, Kaiba attacks into it only for Guardian Slime to block it. Neo Ultimate Dragon attacks again to finish the job. Guardian Slime's final effect resolves, and Atem adds Ancient Chant to his hand. With 1 more attack left, and Atem having nothing to stop it, Kaiba uses the final attack of Ultimate Dragon to attack into him and inflict 4,500 damage, leaving Atem with only 2,000 life points left. And to rub salt in the wound, Neo Blue Eyes gets destroyed, however Deep Eyes is summoned in its place due to its own effect. Deep Eyes White Dragon has the effect to special summon itself from the hand if a dragon was destroyed on your field during this turn, also it will copy that dragon's attack. But regardless how it comes out, it then inflicts damage to the opponent equal to the number of dragons in your graveyard times 600. And finally, if this card is ever destroyed, it'll just nuke your opponent's entire board. After copying the attack of Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, it punishes Atem with 1,800 damage, leaving him with a mere 200 life points to his name. There's no way Kaiba could have known this, but had he attacked the other way around, he would have inflicted 2,000 damage to Yugi. Then he would have been forced to summon Guardian Slime, attack into it with Crystal Dragon, add Deep Eyes to hand, and then when he destroys that monster, Deep Eyes comes out, its effect damage then knocks Yugi out. Kaiba finally ends his turn by setting Dominus Impulse, Called by the Grave, and Nutrient Z all face down, standing confidently while Atem is on his knees. After recovering, it's now Atem's turn, and he draws the card that will help turn this duel around, Layer of Darkness. We'll come back to this card later, because for now, Atem activates Dark Factory of Mass Production. Now he can retrieve 2 monsters from his graveyard and add them back to his hand. Kaiba, deducing immediately he's going for Exodia, has to stop this, otherwise Exodia's effect will go off. If that happens, he will lose the duel. Refusing to lose to Exodia after coming so far, Kaiba denies this play by activating Called by the Grave. This card has the effect to banish 1 monster in the opponent's graveyard. It also negates the effect, but that doesn't matter because the monster that he's banishing has no effect. What's important is that he banishes a piece of Exodia, and with this banished, assembling all 5 is now impossible. possible. Attempts to get the other piece back to add to his resources, but continuing on, he then normal summons Ra's disciple, which confuses Kaiba for a second.
What?
But once Atem reveals that Ra's disciple can summon 2 more copies of itself, Kaiba deduces that Yugi is going for an Egyptian god. Although Kaiba has no idea which of the 3 are coming, he can't allow any one of them to hit the field. To stop the summon, he activates Dominus Impulse. This trap card has the effect to completely shut down any card or effect that mentions or includes the effect to special summon something. And if there is a trap already in the graveyard, that card is also destroyed. With that door shut, Atem has to take a new path. To rearrange his hand, he activates Graceful Charity, which then draws into Magical Stone Excavation, and then just re-adds Graceful Charity back to his hand. So, to keep this whole combo as simple as possible, he discards the remaining 4 pieces of Exodia, Millennium Ankh, and Slice the Sky Dragon. With his hand currently consisting of Layer of Darkness, Dry White, Ancient Chant, Revive Sky God, and Dark Burning Magic. With all that out of the way, Yugi finally activates the field spell, the Layer of Darkness. I gotta say, this card in the modern day is a little underappreciated because it's honestly not that bad. For starters, every monster on the field becomes dark, which is actually pretty good for disruption play as a super poly deck. Also, for every tribute that occurs during this turn, the turn player will receive 1 token for each tribute performed, with a maximum of 5 at a time. And finally, and what makes this card especially dangerous, is that the turn player, if they activate a card or effect that needs to tribute something, they can do so with a dark monster on the opposing field, even if they don't control it. With Atem's field now set, it's now his turn to go for game. He activates first Try White. This allows him to target 3 monsters in his graveyard and special summon them, but they must be level 2 or lower. He revives the 3 pieces of Exodia that are not the head. Kaiba complements this in a backhanded way, where it was impressive he got the tributes required to summon a god card, but since he already used up his normal summon to summon Ra's disciple, he actually is not allowed to summon one. Or at least, that would have been the case, if not for Ancient Chant. This card not only adds Ra to hand, but also grants him 1 more tribute summon this turn, which will allow him to get the god card out.
You what?
After reciting the Ancient Chant and offering the 3 Exodia pieces as tribute, Yugi summons the most powerful of the Egyptian gods,
Winged Dragon of Ra!
The Winged Dragon of Ra has a lot of effects, but we're going to worry about 2 effects today. The first effect is, when this card is tribute summoned successfully, it copies the stats of the monsters that were used to summon it. Meaning the right combination of monsters can get this monster's stats to absurdly high levels. Since the combined Exodias had 600 attack and 900 defense, Ra stands with 600 attack and 900 defense. And the other effect that we're going to focus on is that Ra, at any time, can tribute monsters you control to gain their attack, permanently. All of Ra's other abilities usually are tied to life points, and since Yugi's life points are very low, it's not recommended he use them. But even if he did, the outcome of this duel is not going to change. Speaking of that tribute effect, Kaiba notes Yugi doesn't have any monsters left to tribute, but that's where Layer of Darkness comes in. Due to its effect, Yugi's allowed to tribute 1 dark monster on Kaiba's field. Since Layer of Darkness treats the 2 Blue Eyes monsters as dark monsters, they are valid targets. Ra tributes Deep Eyes White Dragon to gain its attack, and since Deep Eyes was not destroyed, Ra is not blown up. Nothing would matter anyway, because the Egyptian gods are immune to things that specifically interact with them. With Ra now boosted up and having enough tap points to go for game, Yugi orders Ra to attack Crystal Dragon. If this attack connects, Kaiba will lose the duel. Just before damage calculation occurs, Kaiba quickly activates Nutrient Z. Due to this card, if he would take more than 2,000 damage, Kaiba's life points increase by 4,000 just before the attack is allowed to collide.
That's more than enough to survive your little divine tantrum.
While Crystal Dragon is still destroyed, Kaiba survives.
Well defended, Kaiba. You survived the blow, yet your field is empty, and your hand is gone, and you're facing Ra itself. I am curious to see how you escape this.
Atem then sets Dark Burning Magic and revives Sky God both face down and ends his turn. And as he does, the final effect of Layer of Darkness activates. Since 4 monsters were tributed this turn, he receives 4 tokens, and puts them all in defense position. It's now Kaiba's turn, and if he doesn't draw something this turn, he will lose on Atem's next turn. He draws the trap card Threatening Roar. With literally nothing else he can do, he sets it face down. He declares his turn over, and since he did not tribute anything this turn, he receives no tokens to protect himself. Now back to Atem, he draws Obelisk the Tormentor. He sacrifices 3 of the 4 tokens that he has in order to summon it. Like Rob before him, he also is immune to things that specifically interact with him, but Obelisk also has the unique ability to tribute 2 monsters that you control to wipe out the opponent's field of monsters, and when this happens, that opponent will take 4,000 damage. Now, keep in mind, this is a quick effect, which is kind of weird because Atem also has support card Soul Energy Max for some reason. If I had to guess why, I think because Atem in this animation puts emphasis on the fact that the trap card inflicts effect damage, but I think it's always been implied that Obelisk's effect always inflicts battle damage because we see Karibo in Battle City deflect this. Again, I'm very rusty on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime and the lore, so just correct me in the comments. Now, you'd think the duel will be over at this point, but no. Yugi, after being baited again by Kaiba, makes the absolute insane play by activating Revived Sky God, which not only revives Slifer from the graveyard, but it also lets both players draw until they're holding 6 cards! And if that was not bad enough, the next card Kaiba was going to draw was a dead spell card! Yugi's gonna win! And all he had to do was leave that damn producer in the graveyard! God damn it! Okay, crash it over. Let's just finish this up. The 6 new cards that both players get, starting with Atem, are the final 2 copies of Raw's Disciple, Soul Energy Max, Magical Eyes Fusion, Alpha Summon, and Return from a Different Dimension. Kaiba obtains Forget Defense, Soul Exchange, Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon, Dictator of Dragons, Blue Eyes Abyss Dragon, and Ultra Polarization. With all 3 God cards in the field, Atem enters the battle phase, but before he can actually declare an attack, Kaiba activates Threatening Roar. This card stops the opponent from declaring any attacks for the rest of his turn. Notice how I said opponent, not monsters. That's because the card specifically states the opponent and the monsters are nowhere in its card text. Meaning this doesn't affect monsters in any way, this affects the player, shutting down a game mechanic. And since this card doesn't actually affect the God cards, while the gods might be immune to cards, Atem isn't. And since a game mechanic was shut down, he can no longer issue an order to attack. Entering his main phase 2, Atem activates Magical Eyes Fusion. This card allows him to fusion summon using cards in his graveyard. However, they must be banished, and this card can only special summon Spellcaster monsters. He banishes 2 pieces of Exodia, 2 Dark Magician Girls, and 1 Tempest of Prophecy in order to special summon Quintub Magician. Quintub Magician is both immune to being tributed and immune to card destruction by card effects. Also, since it was fusion summoned with 5 Spellcaster monsters with different names, it blows up your opponent's board, but since Kaiba's field is empty, essentially nothing happens. With that done, Atem then sets Soul Energy Max, Alpha Summon, and Return from Different Dimension all face down. As his turn comes to an end, the effective Layer of Darkness triggers, but since his field is full, he gets no tokens. Finally, since Slifer was special summoned, like all God cards, if they are not tributed summoned and are special summoned, they are returned back to the graveyard. It's now Kaiba's turn, and the penultimate turn of the duel. He draws and gets Dragon's Mirror, and is now ready to perform a triple fusion play. But before that, Atem goes for game a second time. He activates Alpha Summon, which allows both players to summon a banished monster, but they have to use a monster from the opponent's banished pile. Yugi gives Kaiba one of the pieces of Exodia that he banished, and Kaiba gives him the only monster that he can, Absolute King Backjack. To go for game, Atem activates Soul Energy Max, which allows Obelisk to tribute 2 monsters on his field and inflict 4,000 points of effect damage.
4,000?
Obelisk tributes the token along with Kaiba's monster in order to blow up the hand of Exodia, and almost inflicts 4,000 points of damage. However, Kaiba quickly in response activates Ring of Defense in his hand to block all effect damage this turn. Now Kaiba could have reactivated Jack's effect in the graveyard, but since he only has 2 traps left in there with a deck of 11 cards, the chance of actually getting a trap card are low. However, had he gotten Ring of Destruction, he would have won Duel, since Ring of Defense was activated this turn. No display here, that just requires a lot of luck. After that, Kaiba officially begins his move by activating Soul Exchange, which allows both players to tribute monsters on the field, even if they don't control them, which mirrors Layer of Darkness' effect. Once again, because this is affecting a player and not a monster, the 2 remaining gods are not immune to it. Because Yugi's hand only consists of 2 non-tributable summon monsters, he summons nothing. Nothing would matter because Kaiba's field is empty. Kaiba, however, tributes both Obelisk and Ra to normal summon Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon, which technically is shenanigans because this monster cannot be summoned, but I'm not really aggravated about this because Kaiba's like, you know what, I've already tributed 1 god for my girlfriend, so how about I tribute 2? With the god cards out of the way, he sends Blue Eyes from deck to grave in order to special summon Dictator of Dragons from his hand due to its effect. He also activates its second effect, which allows him to discard 1 card from his hand that mentions or is a Blue Eyes White Dragon to revive a Blue Eyes monster from his grave. He revives the same monster he just discarded, Blue Eyes Abyss Dragon, which immediately activates its own effect to add a polymerization or a ritual spell from his deck to his hand, but since he has no ritual monster in his hand, what he goes for is Fusion Substitute. He doesn't play that polymerization, he instead plays Ultra Polymerization, which has the same effect, except he has to pay 2,000 life points to use it. As well, while it's in the graveyard, it can be banished to revive the monsters that he just used for a fusion summon, puts them back on the field, but with their effects negated and their power reduced to 0. First, with Ultra Polymerization's first effect, he fuses both Alternative Dragon and Abyss Dragon to form Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon, where, as mentioned before, is immune to all trap cards and can set a trap from the graveyard to your field when it battles, but also, unbeknownst to Yugi, it can attack every monster on his field once each. He then uses the graveyard effect of Ultra Polymerization to revive those very same dragons, and then uses Fusion Substitute to fuse them a second time to create Garua Wings of Resonant Life. Garua can be made by fusing 2 monsters with the same attribute and type but different names. As well, when it battles, any damage to your opponent is doubled, but the real reason that Duelist even uses this card in the first place is that when it's sent to the grave for any reason, the owner can draw a card. Finally, to round out his play, Kaiba uses the graveyard effect of Fusion Substitute to shuffle Twin Burst Dragon back into his extra deck and draw a card out of it, and he then activates Dragon's Mirror to fuse Blue Eyes and alternative Blue Eyes in the graveyard to resummon it once again. Now, Kaiba has the option to banish Abyss Dragon in his graveyard, but since on the board he believes he has game, I don't see an issue with this really. There's no way he could have known what was about to happen. But even if he did, again, this would not change anything because, again, of what's about to happen. Going for game, Kaiba attacks into Quintet Magician with Twin Burst Dragon. Due to its effect, it is not destroyed in the battle, Kaiba takes the damage, and because Quintet Magician was not destroyed, it, like Dark Magician earlier, gets banished.
Go, Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon! Strike him down with majestic white lightning! I win!
Before Tyrant Dragon constructs the final blow, Atem activates Return from a Different Dimension. Now by paying half his life points, he can summon as many of his banished monsters as he possibly can, his life points go down to 100, and he revives Dark Magician Girl, Apprentice Illusion Magician, Exodia the Forbidden One, and Tempest of Prophecy to defend him. This doesn't seem to matter because Tyrant Dragon can just attack in all of them, and Kaiba, now aware of Apprentice Illusion Magician's effect from before, attacks into her first, knowing Yugi will use her to boost up another spellcaster and deflect the attack. Before all his monsters are destroyed, he activates Dark Burning Magic. If Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl are on the field at the same time, then every card on the opponent's field is destroyed. The effect resolves uncontested. Dictator Dragons can redirect attacks, but this is a spell, not an attack. Twin Burst Dragon is immune to Battle Destruction, not Spell Destruction. And finally, while Blue Eyes Tyrant Dragon is immune to trap cards, again, this is a spell card. So every card on Kaiba's field is destroyed.
No! Another admirable attempt, Kaiba, but this time it was not enough.
Warning! Critical energy level at 3%.
No! I refuse to accept this! It can't end like this!
Nearly out of time, but stubbornly refusing to quit, Kaiba continues by activating Garua's effect. Where it's sent to the grave, he can draw one card. Kaiba, in an attempt to get some kind of hand he can work with, first activates the card he drew with Fusion Substitute, Burial from a different dimension. Because of this, he can now target 2 banished monsters and return them to the grave. He selects the monsters he banished just this turn, Blue Eyes White Dragon and Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon, returning them to the graveyard. This might not seem like much, but it's because the card he drew thanks to Garua was Pot of Avarice. This card allows him to shuffle 5 cards into his deck that are all monsters, and when he does, he can draw 2 cards. He shuffles back Blue Eyes Alternative White Dragon, Blue Eyes White Dragon, Deep Eyes White Dragon, Neo Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon, and Blue Eyes Twin Burst Dragon to draw 2 cards. The final 2 cards Kaiba will get throughout this entire duel are Battle Mania and Rage with Eyes of Blue. He sets them both face down and ends his turn, and because of this, the effects of Layer of Darkness and Return from a Different Dimension now trigger. First, Layer of Darkness activates, which gives Kaiba 4 tokens since he and Yugi attributed the combined total of 4 monsters. And finally, since the turn is over, every banished monster that was summoned due to the trap card from Atem is now re-banished at the end of the turn. It's now Atem's turn, and referencing the iconic Draw Your Last Pathetic card, it's the final turn of the duel. Atem draws his final card, Palladium Oracle Mahad, the true form of the Dark Magician. Due to its own ability, it is allowed to be summoned the very second it's added to the hand. Mahad has 2 other effects that, where, if it's ever destroyed, it special summons Dark Magician, essentially transforming back into Dark Magician with the card's lore. However, its final effect is, when it battles a dark monster, its attack strength is doubled during that battle only. The thing is, with the field the way that it currently stands, if nothing changes, Atem will lose come Kaiba's next turn. Because Kaiba has 4 tokens to defend him, and even if Yugi does summon the final 2 copies of Ra's Disciple in his hand, he won't have enough attacks to get through the tokens. Kaiba will then draw his next card. Doesn't matter what he draws, ends his turn, back to Atem, he loses by deck out. However, this is not what Seto Kaiba wanted to do. He wants the perfect final clash. This is when Kaiba activates Battle Mania. Now no matter what Atem does now, he is unable to end his turn unless all of his monsters attack. This means Mahad is forced to attack something this turn. While Atem is a little confused about this, Kaiba reveals he envisions the perfect final clash and activates Rage with Eyes of Blue. Due to its effect, he banishes everything from his hand, field, and graveyard, getting rid of everything to summon his ace monsters, all 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons. Essentially having no choice in the matter, and Kaiba, unaware of Mahad's effect to double its attack, because keep in mind, Layer of Darkness is still in the field, which did turn all 3 Blue Eyes into Blue Eyes Dark Dragon, by the way. Yugi orders Mahad to attack into Blue Eyes, while Kaiba orders all 3 of his own Blue Eyes to attack Mahad. Now again, due to Mahad's effect, its attack doubles since it's battling a dark monster, in this case one of the Blue Eyes. However, since all 3 Blue Eyes are attacking, there is the chance that Kaiba was about to win, because all 3 Blue Eyes possess the combined attack of 9,000. Unfortunately, regardless of what was going to happen...
Duel mode deactivated.
No!
Kaiba's brilliance and genius had backfired. The same machine he created to go to the afterlife is now forcing him back due to a safety protocol that he installed, meaning the duel concludes with no clear victor. But not before a parting message from Atem, telling Kaiba to move forward and that he cannot live in the past forever. Now that Kaiba's gotten the closure he so desperately wanted, Kaiba then goes on to bring the game to new heights by focusing on fusion summoning, most likely funding and creating Duel Academy in the background, as Jaden Yuki watches from the crowd as the next generation of duelists is being prepared. If there are a few closing words I could give a duel like this, well, it was great, it was fun to watch, and I really don't have much else to say about it. I've already said all I wanted to say through this entire video, but one more thing I must say, which I will commend Exceed Prince for, is that Kaiba, on the final turn of the duel, wanted to end it the same way it began all those years ago.